Welcome to the Not Another Fitness podcast. How was that, Amy?
That was much better.
Little hint of partridge on the end as well.
Yeah, not too much though. That was a good balance.
Trying to make it slightly more subtle than going full Alan every time we start one of these. Let's start, as it has become customary, with you, mate. How's things? What you been up to?
I am fine. I'm a little bit tired. My bag's under my eyes, a little bit epic. Had a few early mornings, been coaching in-person classes, which is nice that I do the early mornings, especially in this weather, because it's cool. So as I saw from your run the other day on Facebook, you suffered the full effects of the weather at the moment.
Stupidity, that was. Pure stupidity.
So being typically British, we love to have something to moan about. So at the moment this week, it is the warm weather.
It's too hot.
It's too hot. It's far too hot. But no, I'm good. I am good. I'm going to see my mummy tomorrow for the first time since January. So I am very excited. So it's just been a bit of a rush this week to get work done because obviously I don't want to have to do any work while I'm there. I'm going on a Saturday and staying till Tuesday. So decent amount of time because it's the first time I've seen her. So yes, I am excited for that. Excited for a little bit of a break. And I know it sounds weird. Desperate for a beer. Like when I'm getting up early, I'm quite conscious that I don't drink during the week and I haven't had a beer the whole time this weather has been this nice, and there's something about the sunshine that just makes me crave a beer. I'm so desperate for a drink, and I've never been that person, but I'm desperate for a drink.
I can't believe you haven't had a beer. I mean,
no, well, I know how badly it affects my sleep. So, I mean, I'm sure that's another topic for a podcast, but it messes my sleep up something shocking if I have anything more than one. And the problem with only having one is I want another one. So I find it a lot easier with alcohol just to not have one. So it just makes my sleep so much better. And especially when it's bloody hot anyway. And I don't know about you, but I've been struggling to get more than like 5 hours sleep a night because I've been tossing and turning because it's so hard to get to sleep and stay asleep. So,
yeah, evenings are not much. Trying to get to sleep is not much fun. I mean, I've gone the opposite way and started to drink more beers, and it's probably not helped the sleep. So I've probably got us both covered over this
oh, you're
lockdown
good
period.
then, mate. Thanks. You got my back.
I'm picking up the slack, kindly left by you.
Yeah. How are you though?
Yeah, I'm good. I was just going to say, how mad is that you haven't seen your mum since January?
Yeah, I know. Like, I mean, I said last week how I was feeling a little bit overwhelmed, and I think a lot of it is like a bit of emotional overwhelm as well. Because like we've had a lot going on. Like Mum and I both work for the same company, so we've both been furloughed and having to deal with our lives being really, really different, and the future looking really, really different as well. So yeah, we've both had a lot to go through, and I'm an only child and she's an only child, and my mum and dad are separated. Dad's in Spain, just to give you my whole family tree there. But like basically like we're all each other's got. So it's just been a long time, and I think this is the longest we've ever really spent apart, because even when I was at uni, like you'd see each other once every 3 months or so.
I was just going to ask you that. Do you reckon that's the longest time in your life that you haven't seen her? That's crazy, isn't it? Like if you'd have said at the start of 2020 that you wouldn't go to the gym for a couple of months, you wouldn't see your mate, you'd be like, what happened to me then? What's going on?
Yeah, did I lose a leg? Like,
have I been incapacitated? Am I still alive?
Yeah, so it's just a bit mental. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to some time with her, although after 24 hours I'll probably be like, right, I'm done, I'll see you later. You just annoyed me.
Thanks.
But no, so that's good. I'm well. I'm very excited about tomorrow.
Yeah, and to be fair, before we started recording, you did say that your mum was listening to every episode, so that is very much said in jest, I'm sure.
Yeah, which for my mum to listen to a fitness podcast, she must really miss me. So yeah,
and we're under pressure to up our game from the protein one, because that was just that wasn't a crowd pleaser, was it?
So for those of you who actually do like our more informative podcasts, my mum, bless her, is very supportive and actually does listen to the podcast because she knows Andy as well. So her feedback was, yeah, it's not really my thing. I kind of zoned out a little bit. So
I appreciate that level of honesty and feedback though.
Yeah, so thanks for the listen anyway, Mum. You do put our our listeners up, which is appreciated.
Yeah, that's another one. That's another one in the column.
Yeah. Andy, what's the builder update?
House is coming along. The builders have gone. The painter's in. So another step towards the house being done. I reckon another. I mean, we were laughing about it beforehand, but this time next week we could have a floor, and you have no idea how happy that makes me. Talk about first world problems. One of my clients, she works for the NHS, in like quite like an organisational capacity, let's call it. And when I got on the phone to her and just had a quick chat, I was thinking, I've got to stop moaning about stuff. Do you know what I mean? Really puts my troubles in perspective. So yeah, shout out to everyone who works for the NHS in whatever capacity, because I think, yeah, we've all had our individual struggles, and like legitimately so, but man, being on the front line and trying to coordinate that is just, yeah, not a job I would relish, I think it's fair to say.
Massive respect to everybody that's kept everything going.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
And as for this weekend, we are going over to Sarah's sister's tomorrow, and they're ordering pizza in. So
I thought Friday was pizza night. It's Friday today.
We've had to sacrifice the Friday. I mean, Sarah said, she was like, "Look, should we just cook tonight?" I mean, I was disgusted, if I'm being honest.
Me and Jack are only coming over to yours and Sarah's on a Friday for that reason. Like, yeah, we want pizza.
I mean, if there's any way that I can engineer like back-to-back pizza nights, I will, but it just felt a bit, and to be fair, it's so ridiculously hot. I'm like, do I want a massive pizza tonight? I could probably go without.
Yeah, true. Fair play.
So we're having that nice, light, classic pasta and meatballs.
You know what will make that better? Put it on a pizza.
Yeah, exactly. I'm supposed to have it yesterday, but that was just too hot. I don't particularly fancy it, but yeah, let's see what happens later. Probably end up ordering a pizza. Let's
that
be
sounds
fair.
Nice though, going to see family again.
Yeah, see Jess and Tom, that'll be good. So that's just down in Walthamstow. So again, any time that I like leave Stortford at the moment, it feels like an event because it's just
massive.
Apart from, recently we've been out and about the weekends and stuff, but there is a certain amount of, and I think with the house as well, there's just a certain amount of cabin fever that starts to set into any opportunity I have to go somewhere novel. I will take it. Probably not Bournemouth Beach if the photos are to be believed, though.
Don't get me started. But gyms are still closed, Andy. Gyms are still closed.
Yeah, do you know what? Look, we are going to do at some point the back to gym podcast, but we've shelved that for the that could have been today. That could have been a good one for today, but hopefully it's only an extra couple of weeks.
Yeah,
but I kind of get it. I get it
too. I do get it too. So, bearing that in mind, that is not the topic of this podcast. What is the topic, Mr.
Well, this technically is listener Q&A, but it's just one listener.
Yeah.
And it's Penny.
It's Penny.
So if you're listening to this, Penny, as promised, you've been incredibly generous with your feedback and asked some really good questions. So what I decided to do was pull a few of them together. And we've actually got a few, he says, bringing up the show notes. Basically around the impact to me and Amy, like during lockdown, specifically around coaching clients. And obviously we've been doing the vast majority until recently online, and just a few questions off the back of that. So we've got a few kind of lined up, but no doubt we will go off on our meandering way with these a little bit, because it is, I'll kind of kick this off. It is something that I've, as the months have gone on, that I have started to think about in terms of, I suppose, first of all, big picture, just will I continue doing online work? And from someone who was definitely maybe not skeptical, but certainly hesitant at the start, and hesitant to do online training in general. Like online consultations, absolutely fine. Online programming is something I do anyway, but I've never until this actually delivered like a face-to-face session on Zoom or online before. And I've said it on probably a couple of the podcasts before, but it's actually, I found it's been so much better than what I anticipated. Yeah, that's the first thing. It's been way better than I anticipated, and I think part of that is because a lot of the clients that I work with them for a long time. So it'd be interesting. I haven't had that experience of taking on a complete newcomer, like never having seen them move before in the flesh. So that's definitely got its own set of challenges. But I think, yeah, overall, I think it's been a real positive, and it is something that I'm going to continue to offer in the future.
Interesting. That's cool. And how do you think that's going to affect your way of working in terms of like your time management? Do you think that's going to increase your capacity to actually increase your client base? How do you think that's going to impact your day-to-day way of working?
Superb question.
You're welcome.
I think it's exactly that. I think it's time management. And knowing that you can't do everything. So this is a consistent theme with definitely with me and you in terms of our different hats that we have to wear, whether it's jobs, in the fitness industry, out of the fitness industry, juggling things around, online, in person, nutrition, PT, consultations, check-ins. There's a lot. You take on a new person, and okay, there's that hour that you spend with them in the gym, but then there's also the programming off the back of that. There's the ongoing alterations. There may be part of their program may involve online check-ins or online feedback. So it's not this. I suppose that's actually something that maybe people don't realize at large. Like a lot of people, I think that PTs rock up, deliver the hour, and then go away. I imagine it's almost like how people think that teachers have got an easy kind of gig. And I'm not saying it's like the hardest job in the world, but good teachers are going to be staying on at school and getting the marking done and keeping on top of everything. And it's very similar with clients, not saying they're children, but but there's a certain amount of when you go into a session, you should have the session planned, or at least an outline of what you're going to do. And that planning takes time. So I think I've got an idea of what I'm going to do in terms of like designating like set afternoons or set hours to do the online stuff. But I imagine, because it's so unpredictable in terms of how many clients are going to come back and what the gym looks like, it's going to be a suck it and see type of scenario. It really is. Like I'll have some rough guidelines in place, but I know I'll give it a week or two to bed in, and then there's going to be some alterations made, I would have said.
I think the big difference now, though, especially with someone like you, I mean, my circumstances are really different, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I suppose someone like you, it's given you a lot more scope in your practice to actually expand your offering in terms of your value to your clients. So say you did have one client come in and you literally have no time to offer them any kind of in-person session. Now what value can come from an online session. And it might be a case of, rather than saying to them, look, I'm really sorry, I actually don't have time for you now, or I can't fit you in because I'm full. It might be a case of, okay, well, let's jump online in a couple of days. And then I know I've got this person here and this person here. So actually I could take you on there. And then in another week, we can do one in-person session. And then we can keep you online for the next 3 weeks. Like it just gives you a little bit more value as a PT, and that you can give value in those sessions to your clients. And I think speaking as a client rather than a coach, because I've been doing at-home workouts that my gym's been offering, and I know my boyfriend has as well. He can work from home, turn his computer off, and in a minute he can be exercising, and the value for him of having that time is literally invaluable. So I think from a client's perspective, knowing that a PT has that tool in their toolkit to give them that offering, and if that PT's got a good reputation as well, then that's amazing for you to be able to offer that. Like, that expands your client potential massively. Like, technically, like internationally, say you've got a client that moves abroad, then that's an option that you can keep going with them.
Yeah, I think that's something that's part of the feedback I've had as well. Because so at the outset, I was thinking, cool, right, Zoom's working quite well. So in the early days, it very much was, I'll run this until we go back in the gym, and then everything kind of goes back to normal. And as it's gone along, and I've got more familiar with the setup, and even we'll talk about things we've learned by using Zoom and training people online, but the more familiar I've got with like the technology, the more comfortable I've felt with the sessions. Clients get used to it as well. And actually, some of the clients have said, "Oh, this would be good when I'm, on the road, or if I cannot make the gym, or like those." So they're actually
Yeah.
asking me, and that's been said on numerous occasions, like, "Are you going to be offering this in the future?" And some of that's with people that would like the flexibility to have a bit of both, almost like a kind of hybrid coaching model. And some of the others, it's because they're still shielding and they're not feeling 100% confident coming back to the gym. And that kind of made the decision for me, like that I was going to
Yeah.
continue it on when I know there's 3 clients I know will not be coming back to the gym. Unless something pretty radical changes, potentially not even until we've got a vaccine for
Yeah.
COVID, because they just don't feel 100%, even with the measures in place, and that's absolutely fair, fair enough.
Of course.
Um, so to be able to still maintain contact, and actually, okay, Zoom it's not face to face, but it's a better substitute than just doing something written
Massive.
or over the phone. And actually to see someone move, and this is something that I've been echoing to to a lot of my clients over this period of time. You might not have any equipment and you might only be able to do body weight stuff or some mobility work, but you're going to be in such a better position having moved muscles, moved joints, kept patterning in place over 3-4 months versus doing nothing.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's going to be hard enough going back anyway, let alone if your body's kind of stiffened up over 4 months.
Huge. And like, I know just from the group sessions that I've coached online, I mean, we're at Liftoff, we capped them to, I think, 5 to start with, and we've now upped them to 7, just to keep our offering really, really individual, so you feel like you're getting a coach's full attention. I mean, I know some of these classes, they go up to like 20, 30, even more, but we really kept things quite personal. And I was still delivering the same coaching cues that I would in a class, especially when you think about the limitations of home workouts as well, in terms of resistance. So you're not moving weights around. Oh dear, sorry. You're not moving weights around. It's mainly just your body weight. So we are utilizing things like levers and tempo and isometric movements, and you have to be a lot more aware of how you're moving your own body to protect your spine and things like that. So, just to be able to look at a screen from a coach's perspective and say, okay, you're supposed to be going down for 3 and you're actually going down for 2. So, you really need to be hot on these things and really think about that core engagement, and to be able to actually get a visual and make people more aware of how they are moving with outside of any kind of resistance or weights or anything like that. That's been a really, really good thing. And I think that's really important, which is something you just wouldn't get from just flicking a generic program out.
No, 100% agree with that. And actually, that 2 of the questions that we had written down here, the first one was, has it improved you as a PT or a coach? And I think it's a resounding yes from both. I would imagine it's just like a no-brainer. And then, what skills, if any, have you had to develop? And I suppose to me, like the 2 most obvious ones would be, you suddenly haven't got all your or you're relying heavily on your verbal skills or verbal cues, as opposed to, like, I will be hands-on, not in a pervy PT way,
Let's say
respectfully.
tactile, Andy. Let's say
I'm
tactile.
a tactile kind of guy.
Yeah, me too.
And the thing is, the more you work with someone, so you know how some people they've the people that kind of, not at the moment, obviously COVID, but people that steam in and give you a hug, they're all hugs
Yeah,
and kisses right off the bat, and
basically us.
you can make an assumption that they're going to be comfortable with. So like the one I always talk about is like the tapping between the shoulder blades,
Yeah.
like try and squeeze against my finger, use the shoulder blades, retract and squeeze them together. And as soon as you do that, it's saying to someone, retract, right, go into protraction and now retract your shoulder blades. They might be looking at you thinking, what are you talking about? What is that? Whereas if you just say, feel my finger there, right, squeeze your shoulder blades into it, try and grip it, job done.
The one I always think about is, so internally rotate and then externally rotate, and you're like, they don't have a fucking clue what I'm talking about. So yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, so that one is that has improved, no doubt, and I'm looking forward to getting back into the gym and actually seeing how that translates, because we're not going to be able to be. It's going to be some kind of mad middle ground now, because we're going to be in person with people, but you still can't touch.
Yeah.
So that I'm going to have to like walk around with my hands by my back.
So I did an assessment today of a guy who wants to join the gym, and at one point I think I nearly prodded him with a PVC pipe, because I was like,
honestly,
bum down, and then I was like, Amy, you can't prod him with a pipe. But usually I'd go over and just put the hand on the lower back and like bum down, shoulders up. But I was like, I felt like I was like herding cattle. Like,
honestly,
down,
the cattle prod may be the piece of gym equipment of 2020. It's the new thing that everyone starts investing in. Give me the cattle prod 5000. This is going to be a long session for you, my friend.
I'd just like to prerequisite, I do not cattle prod my clients.
Unless
but,
they really deserve it.
Yeah, but like completely agree just with everything you're saying in terms of like not being able to be tactile with someone. And I'm one of those people, if I can use 5 words or 50, I would probably rather use 50 just because I like talking. So it has made me really think about how specific I need to be with my language in terms and how different people interpret your language differently. You can say one thing to one person and they'll go, oh yeah, massive. I really get that. But then you can say exactly the same thing to somebody else and they'll be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Just a little thing in terms of like when I'm talking about rotation. So if we're talking about, so for example, the deadlift. So we talk about getting tension and switching on the lats before you actually pull for a deadlift, or it's not really a pull, a push through the floor for a deadlift. So we're talking about breaking the bar. So if I'm talking about rotation through like the lats and switching on the lats and engaging and, you know, turning the armpits in, or imagine you're breaking the bar, like people will respond differently to those different cues. And it's just making sure we've almost all had to expand our vocabulary, haven't we? Really, we've had to expand our verbal bank of things to be able to cater for all those different learning styles.
It definitely shows you, or it's shown me what I rely on, and certain clients I rely on tactile feedback. And that's not a bad thing, because you're not expecting a global pandemic to hit and then not see them for a long period of time. But it does show you the ones that are more not standoffish, but the ones that don't need the tactile feedback, or like the kind of pulling and pushing into position. So that normally is, you know, people you work with for a little bit longer. You know, they know, they know so if you say breaking the bar to someone who's been in the gym a while, they know exactly what you mean. If you say that to a gym novice, they may think you literally asking them to try and break the bar. They'll be like, I can't do it.
I came up with a new one today. I was like, imagine the bar is a broomstick and you're trying to just break it, and they're like,
trying to bend it.
I'm like, yeah. I'm like, great, yes. And then you're like, yes, I got that one in the bank, I can use that again. Like,
I heard a great one the other day. It was like, right, you're looking to try and scrape that first layer of skin off your shins. It's like, lovely, that's nice.
So one thing we use commonly in Olympic weightlifting is obviously like trying to keep the bar close to you. It's like, imagine you're trying to lift your t-shirt up with the bar. That's how close you want. But then the next time you usually do it, you usually smack yourself in the face or in the boobs if you've got boobs. So.
It's a rite of passage, that like smacking yourself in the face with a bar. So I think that would be, in terms of skills that we've had to develop, just verbal cueing is a huge one. I think something that you alluded to, talking about body weight and working with tempo and those kind of things. If you're in the gym, especially if you get someone who's strong, you know, you progress through the body weight stuff and you're moving on to the heavier lifts. So whether you're doing like bench or heavy rows, and then suddenly you're working with them and they haven't got the equipment, or they've got limited equipment, you have to think about ways that you're still you're not going to be able to replace like the weight. So you're going to have to lean on other things, and how you program that, and how, probably more importantly, how you adjust the programming. Because when you first, you might have someone who was deadlifting double body weight at one stage, and now suddenly you've got them in the living room and they've got a couple of bands. Well, there's no point just getting him to do, deadlifts with a band kind of thing to try and replicate that. You might do it for patterning purposes, but you're going to have to think of different ways to challenge that person. And it does, like, I remember the first couple of sessions with a couple of clients, it was like, this is going to be that their program is going to look very different, and maybe actually doing a bit more, actually not trying to replicate that, keep the pattern in, and actually let's work on a bit of conditioning. Let's offer some nutrition coaching at this time, because that's something that we can really get on top of. And a few clients have kind of gone that way. They're like, yep, going to lose a bit of strength, can't lift as I would, but I'm going to go back into the gym in shape, good work capacity, plenty of mobility, and the strength will come back. So yeah, that's a huge one.
It's massive, actually. Like now, because obviously we're back to outdoor sessions here because we have the capability to do so. So today we were actually moving through snatches, and a lot of these people that have done the at-home sessions, they haven't lost any strength in their shoulders. But I had a group of 4 guys today, all just doing reps and reps and reps with the empty bar, because they were like, I know this is going to hurt tomorrow. This feels really, really strange. And it is, like you say, it's about training the pathway. But for those people that have kept up the training at home as much as they can, it won't be the strength necessarily that they've lost, maybe slightly because they haven't had the resistance, but it will just be the movement pathways that they need to train again. But it's just like muscle, it has memory. So, once they get back there, it will transfer back very, very quickly. But in terms of coaching, I think at the moment, as well, as we get back to the gym, and again, we will discuss this in another podcast, but it's just about encouragement, really. I think it's about being there as support for people through this time, especially people that have been really worried that, for some people, training in the gym is a big part of their life, mentally as well as physically. So I think being able to offer this kind of service to people online in a way that keeps their body moving and gives them that support and encouragement and real-time feedback that they need, and motivation, because I'm the girl that hates home workouts. Like, I cannot bear them. But knowing that you're logging on to a session with a coach that has invested time in you is a really good motivational tool. And I think that's been a really, really good thing to come out of this as well. And in terms of like almost the power of coaching, I hope clients have got that out of it as well.
Hopefully they have. I mean, I think, again, if you take an approach like that, supportive element, we can kind of talk technique until we're blue in the face, but actually that just being there for someone.
Mum will switch off, she'll get bored, Andy. Let's not do technique.
Yeah, let's not go too crazy. But just being there as a bit of a support, like a support system, or even like people in the gym, a little bit of a support network there, I think it's massively important. Like, trainers need support as well, like other PTs in WhatsApp groups, or clients calling me. Like, I remember when like lockdown first happened and gyms were closing, like a couple of clients were like, are you all right? How do you feel about work? Well, it's really nice. And it's just, again, you either care about people or you don't at the end of the day. And that's just to be able to support someone through this, on the phone, online sessions, or just even sending a message to someone. Like, so there's clients that I've got that are like, they really want to come back to the gym. They don't really get on with Zoom. And I've spoken to them, a handful of times, but it's just touching base and just kind of checking in, really, and making sure they're all good.
And like, I was just going to say, just from a personal point of view, obviously having this platform has actually allowed me personally to actually launch myself in this business and this industry. Obviously, it's something I've been trained in for a while, but because of my full-time job, I never was able to really get momentum. And I think if this was something I'd have been offering when face-to-face training was more of an option, I think people have been like, well, why do I want to pay for an online service when I can go and get face-to-face training? Whereas like during this time, when this is all you can offer and you're prepared to do it, I think those coaches and trainers that have been prepared to run with it and learn and take the feedback on board, I think they're the ones that have probably really excelled. like, have you spoken to anyone? Like, obviously there's clients that maybe aren't so keen, but have you spoken to any like other PTs or any trainers or coaches that maybe haven't been so forthcoming about it? And have they either changed their minds or just been quite, insistent that they're just not going to do it?
I think I haven't spoken to anyone who's completely against it, but I think how much people have utilized things like Zoom has varied massively. I think that's
Mm,
fair to say. And there's coaches that I know that as soon as we could do like the outdoor meeting, they were straight out doing
mm,
it. And again, that's absolutely fine because it was within. I'm not talking about doing massive classes outside. It's all like one-to-one and above board.
yeah.
Um, and they just feel a lot more comfortable with that, like one-to-one in person. I mean, as I do, I feel more comfortable doing it in person, but
Mm,
I'd made that decision not to because of how Zoom had worked. And if it hadn't have worked as well, then maybe I would have been singing a different tune. But I
yeah.
think just as a kind of a point on that, like a broader point, when it first started working, I thought to myself, this is something to offer while I can't meet with people one-to-one or
Mm,
in person. Now I think of it as, actually, no, in its own right, this has value. Whereas I
massive.
probably didn't think that um, beforehand. Whereas now I do. So kind of the third point in like Penny's questions was, has it brought to the surface something you never considered before? Again, kind of touched on it, but I think, training online on a regular basis is
Yeah.
something that I never seriously considered before, but it's going to be part of what I do moving forward. So that's a significant
Yeah.
change. I mean, has it brought anything to the surface for you that you'd like kind of never thought about previously? Or
I mean, like, obviously, like, this situation, I count myself as very fortunate in terms of, I mean, I say fortunate and lucky. My boyfriend would say there's no such thing as luck. He'd say you work bloody hard. And I do. I've worked bloody hard to always have a plan B because that's how I've been brought up. And plan A suddenly wasn't an option for me. Like, my full-time job wasn't an option. The industry is going to take ages to recover. So this was always my plan B. And my PT qualification I got about 5 years ago, but I always had the intention of being a nutrition coach, like purely a nutrition coach, doing some coaching at the gym in terms of classes, because I've got my CrossFit level 1. And obviously we offer very much a strength and conditioning service. Having the PT as a backup, but I purely wanted to do nutrition coaching. The first client I got throughout this whole situation lives in Northern Ireland, and we purely do online nutrition coaching. And I was like, this is great. Via Zoom, check in once a week. This is awesome. All set up, all the documents online. We message throughout the week. Like, I can do this. This is fine. Like, this is very achievable. But I've actually found that the services that people want more than anything are probably more face-to-face PT and more in-personal coaching. So I think that's always going to be the main thing and I think people like yourself and me, because we are so, and I'm, blowing smoke up our asses now, but because we are so relatable and personable and we do have those interpersonal skills, they're what makes us more attractive as coaches. And I don't just speak for us as two individuals, I speak for any coaches that have those skills. That's why you're drawn to a coach as an individual anyway. I mean, I've got 2 clients now. So I've got that client and I've got one other client that's purely a nutrition client, and they are both distance, so they don't live in the local area. So I think for me that's going to continue to be a theme in terms of the nutritional based clients are the ones that I do distance. But then most of my client base, I think, is still going to be, they're still going to crave that face to face, online, like impersonal, some kind of impersonal, in person, sorry. Yeah, like, you know, connection, let's use the word connection. But for me, I've just used it for everything it's offered and for all the benefits, because it's allowed me to really expand my business and my offering and just absolutely rinse it for what it's worth, to be fair,
yeah,
to try and just yeah, get a client base and a following, and look at the opportunities it's brought us in terms of like allowing us a forum to start a podcast. Like, we were meeting up and just having these conversations as a catch up and a chat, always thinking like, oh yeah, we should like record this one day, ha ha ha, wouldn't that be funny? Like,
I mean,
and
it
then
was literally put out there as a joke when we first
exactly
said that. Okay, a lot
exactly
on probably on a couple of occasions,
yeah
and yeah, I think the thing you said about people craving that in-person like connection, I think that's absolutely right. And if you think about, I mean, this technology is amazing. What we've been able to do: launch a podcast, carry on training clients, pick up new clients, do classes, all that stuff is amazing. But with the advancement of technology, literally, like, we can sit here now, we can do this, I can go to an app on my phone, I can get food delivered, I don't have to leave the house. There's so
yeah
much I can do now, and so much I can I can go on Netflix. I've got like however many thousand options, but there is something, and that's because so much of our day-to-day lives now are automated or through apps or through technology. There's still those ones that I think when people have a chance to kind of meet face to face, and especially if you do get on with someone, people jump at it because
yeah
it's like, oh, this is something that is kind of going away a little bit now.
yeah
With friends as well, like if you firing a text message or a WhatsApp to a friend, it is fine, but it's not seeing them.
yeah
Like, it's not. How often have you said this? And I've definitely said this. Like, you meet up with like good friends, like, kind of friends for life friends, and you all say when you leave, we've got to do this again. We've got to get something in the diary. We can't leave it as long this time. And then that a year later, you're like, shit, I
yeah
should have done something.
yeah but like, that works on the flip side, because don't it'd be interesting when things do go back to, and I wanky air quote Amy, normal, because
Your new official nickname.
wanky air quote Amy, could you imagine? um because how many Zoom quizzes did you do in the first few weeks of lockdown?
Oh,
Like,
I got bored of them very quickly.
but it's the same kind of thing. Like, it depends how our ways of working changes, and it depends how our way of life changes as a result of this. Like Jack and I were talking the other night, we were watching telly, I think we were watching Top Gear or something, and they hugged, and I was like, oh God, I can't wait. Do you think we'll ever go back to like hugging and shaking hands with people? And Jack was like, well, probably not until there's a vaccine. And I was like,
No.
God, yeah, you're probably right. So it'd just be interesting to see when Zoom fatigue sets in, and if Zoom's fatigue does set in within the, particularly within the industry and within the fitness industry. I think there'll always be a call for online stuff. But I think with regards to people cashing in and making money off it, as some people probably have, I think that'll drop off eventually, because I think the importance of connection is the, like, in-person connection is the biggest thing. And like you say, I do think that's the thing that people crave. But I think it'll be the clever PTs and the more astute coaches that will utilize it as the most useful tool it can be.
Yeah, it'll be an addition, not a replacement. I think
Yeah.
it's fair to say. I don't think in-person stuff is going, for the majority of people anyway. I don't think in-person is going anywhere anytime soon.
I would agree.
Moving down the list, this one's a bit of a combination. So the last one was, has it brought to the surface something you never considered before? And then leading into, has it made you reconsider how you deliver your in-person sessions? So I will kick us off, because this is genuinely something that I think about on quite a regular basis anyway. And Zoom has just, or training online has just brought this to the fore even more. So most of my clients I've trained for a long time. And by a long time, we're talking, I think all of them north of 6 months, some of them, 10 years. So, and everywhere in between. There are those that I think to myself, and I use this with nutrition as well, if I dropped off the face of the earth, what position would I be leaving my client in? I think of this a lot. This is like something I always have just like whirring around in my brain. So, which
I
is
love
basically,
that.
yeah, so it's like when you do a nutrition consultation or you're doing a PT session, it's not just do as I say. It's we're gonna take this approach. This is why. Let me teach you why this is a good idea. This is something you can apply across the board. So if I do drop off the face of the earth, I haven't just kind of pointed to a machine and got someone on there. I've actually taught them how to hip hinge or squat and why we're doing it and how to combine exercises, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to say that to people, even if they, some people are like, I can tell it's just, they're not particularly listening, but I'll still be like, look, this is why we're doing it. Even if you don't ask me why, I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
But there are people where I know if I put them in the gym, like people that I've trained for a long time, they wouldn't feel 100% confident being in the gym and training by themselves. And therefore, they're not 100% confident being at home training by themselves without me telling them what to do step by step. And I've had this conversation with a couple of them, but I think I need to have it maybe slightly stronger. So it's something that I just want to get across to people. Look, you, as much as it is about, getting on and like breaking a sweat and all that kind of stuff. Also, like, if you can pick these things up and kind of have them as skills, if suddenly you are in lockdown at home, you can do them without me there. I mean, it's great if I can use Zoom and stuff, but what if the internet connection's not great? What if the times don't match up? And it's how am I gonna, going back to the gym especially, how do I get these people, how can I teach better, essentially is what it is. How do I improve that side of what I deliver? Because it might not even be necessarily a delivery thing. It might be technique and from a technical standpoint. It's how do I make this person care enough to want to learn it?
Yeah.
And that's hard if someone's like, well, you're already doing it for me.
Yeah.
So this is why I pay you to do it, kind of thing. And I'm like, no, I get that. But yeah, that's the one. That's the one for me.
It's whether the client pays for you to be the stick or pays for you because they need the carrot. Does that make sense?
Way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah. So do they need you to be the instructor and be like, 2 more, come on, let's go? Or do they need you for a little bit of support and come on, you can do this. Come on, this is why we're doing it. Let's go. And people do it for their different reasons. But I love that. I love the way you approach that in terms of like, how would I leave my clients if I dropped off the face of the earth? That's wicked. That's such a nice way to approach it.
That's a really good one for like one-off consultations.
Yeah.
Especially if you might not see them again. It's like, I might only have an hour with this person. How do I give them? So you can't give them everything. Like before, I would like flood some poor soul with, like 100 different things they could do. Whereas actually give them 1 or 2 that's actually going to move the needle. And you hopefully you leave them in a better place. But that's definitely the one for me.
Yeah. I suppose it's kind of been similar for me because throughout this whole period, I've started the whole process of how I do things and how I onboard clients and how I coach. And I've really been having to learn as I go. So for me, it's been quite humbling that people have wanted to work with me in the first place based on just, I don't even want to say like reputation because I can't believe I have one, but like based on either the content that I put out on social media or based on what they know about me in a professional capacity anyway, as an instructor or as like a safety instructor at work or as just a person in the gym. So that's been very humbling for me. But in terms of my professional development, I know that's something we talked about on a different podcast, like I've just been trying to hone my craft, if anything. So just learn as much as I can, experiment with different things, try not to beat myself up if I maybe think that I could have do something a little bit better. What I have done, or an approach that I have found, particularly with my nutrition clients, who come at their nutrition from a point of maybe slightly disordered eating patterns, slightly, slightly maybe obsessions with body image, maybe with a weight loss goal. I'm really proud of how I've kind of taken off with them in terms of let's start from where we want to end up let's create a good relationship with food. And I don't know if that's kind of like a credit to the situation, in that everybody genuinely does have more time at the moment, so they are able to focus on the, you know, the fundamental principles of nutrition. But then I think, because especially with one client, because we've got a good relationship and a good foundation with the nutrition side of things, then it's kind of filtered into the, oh, okay, well, can you do some training plans for me? And I'm going away, and I'd really like to be able to do some exercise that isn't just running while I'm away. And then it's, I feel very fortunate that I've been able to draw on those skills and pull those out and have this time to do so. And I think, because I've got the time, it's allowed me the time to research a little bit more, and, you know, draw on the experiences of others like yourself, because we've got time to maybe invest in ourselves and our processes. I hope that kind of makes sense, but that kind of, it's made me consider how it's probably not a good idea to just try and niche myself too much. While I don't agree with necessarily being a jack of all trades, and it's always good to have a craft, and obviously, like, nutrition is this one thing that I'm really passionate about, because I bloody love food. And like, that's the one thing that I will always try and educate myself on even more, and really want to push and help people with. I feel really glad that I've had the opportunity to enhance my other skills as well that do complement that. So that is something that maybe I probably would have wanted to neglect at the start, but now I'm seeing the importance of as well.
Yeah, it's good to have, you know, it's during this time, like, people have genuinely gone in different directions with it. Like you said, like, in theory, more time to, you know, to reflect on things, more time for clients to, you know, take an interest in their nutrition potentially, but not for everyone. You know, some people it's like really affected, whether, you know, literally with like family members and stuff, or just the stress of not being able to work, or, you know, what's going to happen with my job, and the kids are at home all the time, and the environment's actually more stressful. So in theory, yeah, like, you know, it might look like someone's got more hours, but yeah, I don't know, like, people have just had completely different experiences throughout
Yeah.
the last 3 months. And I know, like, we've done, you know, we're in contact with clients and friends and stuff like that, but like, I cannot wait to get back to the gym just to see people and chat and be like, how's it been? You
Yeah.
know, to physically just to be like, how have you found it? Because it's really easy to be like, you know, if you chat on the phone, it's like, yeah, I'm all right, yeah, I'm good, da da da. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
whereas really someone might be, you know, someone might have been struggling, and actually those face-to-face conversations that you have with people, the ones that are a bit, you know, a bit deeper, or people are likely to confide, well, that hasn't been an option for quite a period of time.
Mm.
So yeah,
Mm.
I look forward to get back in the gym for that side of
Yeah.
things.
So that probably brings us nicely to Penny's last question then. What changes, if any, will you make moving forward?
I'm trying to think if there's any we haven't covered. So going back to my previous point, changes, it would be just probably to have front of mind the, what would this person do if I wasn't here? You know, how am I leaving them? Have I made them, or have I increased their level of competency and confidence to do the movements if I
Yeah.
wasn't there? So actually, maybe when I jump in and I'm correcting, or maybe if part of that is maybe like correcting too early or cueing too early, whereas sometimes it's better to let someone figure it out. And that's actually probably something that Zoom's allowed me to do, because I
Yeah.
can't go hands on.
Yeah.
So
I
I
mean, as
have
long as they're safe and they're not going to like drop a barbell on the head, then that's totally
yeah,
fine. Yeah.
literally balancing on one leg on a Bosu with a barbell above the head. You're doing it wrong. Put it down. Yeah, so that's definitely something that that might be that's not a massive change, but it's just something I'm more conscious of. I
Yeah.
suppose the biggest change from a day-to-day point of view will be having, again, something we mentioned earlier, will be having Zoom sessions or online sessions as part of what I offer, as
Mm.
opposed to just this thing that started off as a necessity and now it's a choice whether to use it or not. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think that will, I'll think on that a second and hand that one over to you. But they're probably the two biggest ones I can think of, and we've kind of covered them already.
I mean, changes that I'll make moving forward. Probably not to undervalue myself, and that's quite personal, I know, but realize that don't like not to niche yourself, and like expand your offering in terms of the skills that you are qualified for. That seems a bit bizarre with regards to the online coaching and stuff like that, but people tend to want one person for everything rather than like a nutritionist and a PT and something else. So if I can be that one person for everyone, then that's a good thing. Also, just the same. Just don't use 50 words, Aim, when you can use 5. But also there's a lot you can get across in these sessions, and these sessions are as personal as you want to make them. You know, like we've had some great chats over this, and we've got really deep and personal, and I've had some really deep and personal sessions with some of my clients over Zoom as well. And even though it would ideally be one-to-one, you are still the same person, even though you're on the other side of the computer or the other side of the world. And I think that's what we need to see this as. It's just a tool for connection. The real connection actually depends on you as an individual. I mean, we've all been in the gym and seen those PT sessions with the PT who's either like texting on his phone or scrolling, or like they're not even making conversation at all. Like, the main thing about having a coach with regards to your health and fitness is about creating that relationship. And I think this is a really, really useful tool to do that. And if I can get across who I am in an hour over a Zoom call, so much so that someone wants to work with me, then that's pretty awesome. So I think that's probably not a change, but I mean, this is the only way I've ever known of working really in this capacity. Yeah. So like, this is good for me. This is a good thing. So if anything, for me, it's actually just going to be honing my practice when we do go back to an in-person offering, and actually just having the confidence to know that even though the skills that I've built through this and through coaching through Zoom, they are good, and they are just as good to transfer to those in-person classes and in-person coaching as well.
Yeah, I think we're going back into an environment. So like this is kind of what you've known. I've known what the gym was like previously, but we're both going into essentially a new environment anyway, because it's not going to be the same. I think about like the social setup at the gym where I'm based, and you've got like the big sofa by the door and people kind of milling around by the front desk. Well, that's not going to happen now. And that was kind of like a bit of a, like a kind of social hub for people when they come in or grab a coffee on the way out. You've got the PT kind of office upstairs. Well, there's no way you can have us all in there. Yeah. So that was our kind of little, like, have a chat. How's your day going? Again, like a little kind of escape room up there. It's gonna feel, I think, a little bit more
clinical.
Clinical is a good word. I was going to say transactional, but clinical is, that's because especially when you're thinking about potentially like having masks there and like the rightly so, like the kind of necessity to like constantly wash hands and keep things clean.
Well, that's the thing. Like, even just doing an assessment today, like usually as a PT, like I'd pick the barbell for the person, I'd pick the weight for the person because I want it to be appropriate for them. I'd then demonstrate the movement and then get them to like probably jump on the same bar and do it themselves, because it's like, I want to try and give them as much scope to look at what I'm doing, but then they need to step back and take a look at me, and you don't want to have too much equipment out. And I was doing a lot, like I said, that PVC pipe cattle prod today. So like,
if there's one thing we're taking from today's chat, it's that Amy's got a new approach with clients, and it's going to involve a cattle prod, or at least some kind of piping, just jabbing under the ribs. Do better, work harder.
Hey, I mean, that's a very useful tool for some people. It's the stick approach versus the carrot.
It's the literal stick approach.
It's the literal. So how do you approach your in-person clients now, Amy? I beat them.
I approach them with a baton normally.
I think that's probably a good place to end it, don't you?
Yeah, some client violence and harm. It's a good place to call it a day. Thanks again, Penny, for those questions.
Oh, Penny, you absolute legend.
You are a bit of a legend. Thanks for taking the time to put your thoughts down on paper. I mean, she won't mind me saying it's like the penny rambling thoughts, that when that email drops, you're going to have some gems in there, and hopefully, hopefully we answered your questions as you wish, and hopefully the listening audience gets something from it.
Yeah, I hope so too. As always, we do really appreciate feedback. We don't just rely on Penny. We know there are other people out there that listen. So
help Penny out, for God's sake. You're working her too hard with these questions and comments. She needs support.
And my mum's feedback really isn't constructional. Yeah, I zoned out, really. It's
just
not my
do
thing.
better.
Yeah.
Must try harder.
So, but the main thing we appreciate is just that you share any episodes that you've really enjoyed. If you have time, please give us a review, because we're going to keep having the conversations pretty much. And it's nice to be able to have them in a reactive way in response to how the situation is changing. So, yeah.
And if there's any topics that anything, I mean, it can be specific questions, or it can just be topics in general, and then we can kind of pull apart what we think you need to know. But if there's anything like that, like, feel free, like, either on the thread or message me. We'll drop the emails and stuff at the end. But yeah, don't hesitate to get in touch. And obviously shares, reviews, likes, and all that good stuff are hugely appreciated. So
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
bring it on.
I think we're done. I'm in the hottest room in the world.
Yeah, I am warm. I am peeling this t-shirt off at the end of this.
I'm going to be that CrossFit wanker downstairs with my top off. Can I even say that anymore? Are we allowed to say that after everything that's been going on? I don't know.
You just have.
Well, yeah.
Spitting in people's faces, hitting them with cattle prods, training with your top off.
Yeah, come work with me. I'm great.
That's it. There's your little pitch for your online
There's
commercial.
my bio.
Right, mate. It's been a pleasure.
As always.
I'm going to love you and leave you. Until
Bye-bye.
next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Not Another Fitness podcast. If you liked what we do, please subscribe and share. Tell all your friends. And if you want to follow us over on our socials, you'll find me and my contact details over on Instagram at The Flying Food Coach. And you'll find Andy
over at Facebook at the Facebook group Eat, Move, Lift, Enjoy, or feel free to drop me an email on info@andrewjohnscraggs.com. Thanks again for listening. Until next time. That'll do.
Yeah, that'll do. That's good.
That'll do. I'll put that on there as well. That'll do.